Now, I'm not gonna say this review might be a bit biased, but I am kind of a fan of the series. Hello, my brothers and sisters. My name is Daidarius, and welcome to the review of Jigsaw. So, Jigsaw is the eighth installment of the Saw franchise. And with the former installment Saw 3D, or as it later would be known as Saw the Final Chapter, we thought that the story was over, and it was actually a pretty closing chapter on the whole series, but no. So you might think, is this just a cash grab, or did they actually have a story to tell? Well, let's find out. So Jigsaw takes place 10 years after the former movie, which was made 7 years ago. And suddenly some new murders appear, and it looks like that there's a Jigsaw killer. And they quickly get into this question, is Jigsaw still alive? Is John Kramer still alive? And of course, as a fan of the series, I would say, well, no, he got killed off in the 3rd movie, so he can't be alive. I mean, even in the 4th movie, we saw the abduction. But they do really toy with this idea, is that he might be alive. It might not just be a copycat. That is actually the mystery of this film. Now, the movie starts off with that there's this guy who triggers something, and he says that the game must begin, and it will either be him or 5 people. Either he's gonna die or 5 people will die, and he of course chooses himself. And we jump straight into the Saw trap, where these 5 unknown people are. From there, it's just a slow crawling telling of what's happening with these characters and why. And also this investigation. And the movie is just about who is this killer and can they actually manage to save these people. Now, here's what I liked about this movie. This movie was actually a fresh take on the Saw franchise. And by that I mean in the 4th and 5th movie, and even in the 6th movie. If you haven't seen it, then it doesn't make sense. But in the 4th, 5th, and the 6th movie, you had the FBI investigate the Jigsaw murders, but they weren't that effective because they were trying to investigate some murders they have discovered in the former movies, but you still had the murders going on unbeknownst to them. So it wasn't focused on as much as I was liked, because if you think about it, if that thing happens in this day and age, the police will throw everything they have at it, because you have an insane murderer on the loose who kills people with some attraction or something. And not just that, in the most brutal way, so of course we need to stop him. Well, in here, that is actually almost the main focus of the movie, is the investigation that try to catch the killer, because every time someone dies, a bit later, I believe it will be about an hour or 2 later, that body is placed somewhere for the public to find. Then the investigating team will find this body and do an abduction, and then from that try to figure out who this killer is and where these murders are taking place. There are some few problems with this investigational team. Is first of all, there is this lady who is somehow idealizing Jigsaw, not because he killed people. She's one of the doctors who do the autopsy. Not abduction. Did I say abduction? Oh my god. The autopsy. And she admires his engineering work. Not the fact that he killed people, but more in how he managed to do it. And of course, we are led up to, well, she's gotta be the Jigsaw killer. Who else she has the knowledge? Well, she might not. She and the other autopsy doctor is the only kind of persons that you get to know that are actually formed and not developed, but they're given bit depth, just beneath the soil, you know. And that's about it. And the other characters are given just a little bit of depth. Is 3 of the 5 victims in the Jigsaw attraction. That's about it. So you don't really care about these people at all. When someone dies, you just go, eh. That's a bit of a bummer because at least in the former movies, especially 1 to 6, I was kind of rooting for them because not all of them, but some of the victims was given enough character and depth for you to actually give a fuck. But here, not at all. When someone goes into a jigsaw trap, you just go, yeah, you toast. But I don't mind. Now, a bummer for me in this movie is that the traps, first of all, is not ingenuitive at all. It kind of makes sense when you see the movie and get to the final part. Why? But still, when you think about the Saw movies and the Saw franchise, you think about some crazy imaginative attractions that can kill people in insane ways. And here is kind of something you have seen before. I mean, even if you've seen the trailer, they're chained and they're pulled towards some saw blades. That's the first part. And my thought immediately went to Saw 5, where you have these people going from room to room, where each room has a trap they had to overcome. And it's basically the same here. Also, the deaths are not as gory as before. I don't mind that because when you got to the 7th movie, it's kind of like the budget just went to zero. I mean, there's no budget at all in that movie. It has no feel and look of a cinematic movie. You know what I mean? Where they put the filter over and you just go, that's a movie. It doesn't have that. And all the deaths was extremely cartoony. They were not grotesque or brutal. They were just cartoony. It was, I don't know if it was a throwback to how they did some slasher movies in the 70s or 80s, but it was just kind of a bummer, especially when you look at the 6 former movies, how they did death. Every time someone died, you felt it, either by being disgusted or you had some empathy with the character and just kind of felt the squirm and pain yourself. And it was not just the visuals but the sound design that made the death work. But in the 7th it didn't, and here it doesn't either. I don't mind you don't show all the gore, even though you have an R rating and this is Saw, but at least make the sounds do the work then. Make the situation then psychological. If you're not gonna show it, then make us picture it. But if you don't do that, then it doesn't work, and then you again don't care. And this movie sadly does this all the time. So what you have is you have some characters you don't give a fuck about. You have a plot that is about this copycat killer that for some reason always is a step ahead of the investigation team, and it makes sense when you get to the final part of the movie, and it is a bit interesting, but there's not enough focus given on the investigation. And then on the other hand, you have this jigsaw trap construction with these 5 victims, and you don't give a fuck about any of them, and the traps are not imaginative, and the death is not effective, so you don't really care about that. They don't focus enough on that part to make the final twist. You know, in every Saw movie there's a twist. It doesn't make the twist that impactful and satisfying as it used to be. Again, was the same thing in the 7th movie. There's a lot of parallels between this and the 7th movie. The twist, okay, I'm not gonna spoil it, but the twist, it doesn't really make sense when you look at the story chronologically. It just doesn't. And without giving anything away, I will say it does borrow heavily from the former movie. That might be the reason why I compare them so much, because it does really seem like it borrowed too much from the former movie instead of just the whole franchise and the ideology behind it. Saw wasn't about just gory effects and people dying. There was some demeaning, overarching story that was told not chronologically, but what is that? You have the pieces of information laid out to movie by movie in no chronological order. So you have to piece it all together yourself. But when you do, you see the reason why Jigsaw picked exactly those victims. And yeah, they did some horrible things, but there were some more personal aspect to it also. That's besides the point. The twist is not good. It's not bad per se, but it's just not good. There is, however, a second twist, or it's a twist that comes before the twist. That, however, was excellent. It is brushed over completely. All it does is it set up the second twist, kinda, but the first twist was excellent. And then comes the the ending. And the ending is The ending is not good. All I'm gonna say is that Jigsaw always gave his victims a choice. It wasn't die this way or die this way. It was always do this horrific thing to orphan yourself, or this is gonna happen to you. I believe the exception was the third and the fourth movie where those things happen to other people, but besides that. But in the end, the final victim is just kills. It's actually murder. There's no choice here, and the movie focuses so much energy on making this person just a horrible being that you want them dead. But when there's no choice at the end that the person needs to make, then it just doesn't work. The whole thing is just falling apart. And when the ending starts falling apart, then the rest of the movie kind of starts falling apart. So what do you end up with? Well, you end up with a movie that kind of tries to modernize the Saw series, but it doesn't really know how and doesn't know what to focus its energy on. That ends up making the whole thing just falling flat on you. You don't care about anything. You don't care about the characters, the traps, the plot. The only thing that's kind of entertaining is the first twist, because up to that point when the twist is revealed, you just go, wait, what? So I will say that with the Jigsaw movie, you should just catch it on Netflix. My experience. Have you ever wondered that those flesh pieces that Jigsaw cut from his victim, has he ever made a complete picture? So Jigsaw, have you seen it, or what is your favorite entry in the Saw franchise? I'm gonna go with the, cliche route and just say the first one, not just because of the setting and the claustrophobic of it, but the more psychologically aspect of it. But that's just my opinion. So whatever you think, comment below, let me read your thoughts. And as always, until I see you in the next video, remember to stay awesome. Bye! Do 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 do.